Well, okay, here we go. 1 second there, folks. It doesn't seem to be wanting to show the web page. There we go. Finally. Okay. Welcome back to another Unreal study session. I'm your host, Ranger Jim, and we're going to be joined with Blackheart. I see him already in the stage. I apologize there, Blackheart, for running a little late. Um, but we finished off the sound attenuation last time. We covered through everything, and boy, was it a fairly lengthy process there, folks. There was a lot of information that was kind of given to us about it, but we got through it. We are now on the sound cue editor, um, which the editor itself does not appear to be very vast. It might, you know, we might be able to, we should be able to get through this entire page easily enough. The sound cue editor UI, however, is filled with a lot of um, specific keywords and the like, and it's not even something that is really that useful overall. It just says, hey, the visual logger. Well, guess what? It brings up the visual logger in a separate window. And it's like, that's that tells me nothing about what the visual logger is all about. So it's in some ways it's really not that useful overall. I mean, there might be some tiny parts to it that might be useful for the most part, but most likely we're going to be going ahead and skipping the SoundCue Editor UI portion of the um, with working with audio here. So we might just go straight to the SoundCue reference after that. So but that's enough of me talking. Let me go ahead and get Blackheart in so he's not twiddling his thumbs going, when are you going to invite me in there, Jim? Let me get him in. There we go.
Hello there, Jim. How you doing?
Okay, there, bud. How about yourself?
I'm okay.
Are you boiling pretty much there, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is a bit hot. But then again, Argentina right now is hot in two ways: the temperature and the madness that's happening over by the capital and on different parts of the world, actually. Even
Mm. Indeed.
I don't
Indeed.
know if the news over there cover anything of it.
Well, the as much as I'd like to say that United States gets a lot of their is informed by everything that's going around the world, it doesn't often. So
Yeah,
and I don't really.
surprised they mention anything happening at the Argentinian embassy or anything like that.
What's that?
I wouldn't surprise me if they mention anything about the Argentinian embassy.
No,
Because in different
nothing.
parts of the world,
I haven't.
the embassies of Argentina are being like overrun by angry Argentinians.
Oh, okay. No, I did not
And
hear
they even show
anything.
Rome was like overwhelmed by Argentinian protesters over in Rome.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
No,
things are pretty bad. They're heated up in another way as well.
okay. Well, I hope everything goes okay for you there, bud. Obviously,
Oh, I'm hoping it does.
keep me informed. Obviously, don't, if things start,
Right
um,
now, long story short, if at least half of the things the current president is trying to push, then our nation is pretty much dead.
mm,
It's gonna take away so many rights from us. We're looking at about over 300 laws would be abolished. Not to
gotcha,
mention the cops are gonna be allowed to be trigger happy.
gotcha. Okay, well,
Yeah.
um, I wish you luck in this. Really wish I could help you out more.
Yeah, I know.
You
It's
know,
chaos here right now.
yeah. Well, let me know. I know that I can't do much right now, but
I know.
let me
Don't
know
worry.
if there's if the, even if you need me to like come online and have you need someone to talk with, let me know. Reach out to me, okay?
Yeah, don't
Um,
worry.
so okay. Well, shall we continue on with our sound cue editor?
Yep.
Okay. So the sound cue editor is a guide to using the tools available for setting up and editing sound cue node-based audio assets. Okay. Um, they really haven't covered much about what sound cues are to at least to a reasonable degree that I know of. Um, I don't know if you feel differently about that yourself there, Blackheart, but
No, the overview was pretty vague on this, so hopefully we get some answers of what exactly the sound cue is. I can only
yeah,
theorize, but let's
yeah,
hope they cover it properly.
yeah, I don't know. If they don't cover it in the editor here, then maybe we'll get more in the sound cue reference. Otherwise, I mean, this is going to be
We'll
the
have to
end.
experiment
This
with it.
this is going to be the end of our um, working with sound. Okay, just
Yeah.
letting people know. Okay. Um, the next portion that I have on my list of things that we need to kind of cover is artificial intelligence. That's the next one that we're going to be kind of looking at and studying a little bit, seeing if they have any tools associated with that. Which I mean, I'm kind of doing like a little bit of an overview here, and I'm not really seeing much. Maybe it'll be like under programming and scripting
Maybe.
for the
Maybe
AI.
Blueprint.
Um, but at the very least, if, if anything, I will kind of talking about artificial intelligence myself. Using information that I learned when I studied artificial intelligence back in college. A lot of it might be, outdated, and there might be some things that uh, might need revision. You know, but we'll get to that. But um, so yeah, the behavior of audio playback in the Unreal Engine is defined within sound cues. Okay. The sound cue editor is a node-based editor that is used to work with audio. Okay. For more information, blah blah blah. Sound cue. The audio output of the combination of nodes created in the sound cue editor is saved as a sound cue. By default, every sound cue's audio graph node contains an output node, which has a speaker icon on it. The output node's default values volume multiplier is 0.75, and for pitch multiplier is 1. You can modify these values in the details panel. The volume and pitch settings are used to manage relative sound cue volumes. This affects the output of all audio contained within the sound cue. If you're using multiple sound waves with mixer and random nodes, you can control their volume and pitch independently by adding modulator nodes. Okay, that didn't really explain too much of what a sound cue is, though, or at least it didn't feel like that.
No.
Um, once again, I'm kind of it's not giving it doesn't feel like it's giving me enough about what what it's all about kind of thing. Like the the sound mixer, I can kind of understand because you're trying to combine like multiple different sound files into one, you know, mix of sounds altogether, right? And then you can
Right.
kind of manipulate the, um, what sounds takes major priority, if you need to like change the pitch on any one of those particular sounds using mixer, you can kind of try to go about doing that. Blah blah blah, right? How is a sound cue different from a sound mixer? That's kind of my thought line about this. What is a sound cue? What is it all about? You know. So they're not really addressing that very well, or at least maybe I'm missing some keyword, or well, maybe not necessarily catch missing, because I'm obviously reading through it. Maybe I'm just not seeing what um they're like, hey, here's the picture for you, but right now my viewpoint might be very focused on like one particular area and not really seeing like the large picture or something like that. I don't know. Um, so I really wish that there was more there, but um, okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. A sound wave is a representation of an imported audio file in the sound cue editor. You can select a sound wave asset in the content browser and add it to the sound cue you are editing by right-clicking anywhere in the sound cue editor, then choosing the sound wave in the From Selected category in the context menu. Because other sound cues may use the same sound wave, okay, you cannot modify the volume and pitch values of a sound wave in the sound cue editor. Okay. However, you can modify the sound wave's properties when you import it, or by opening it in the content browser by double-clicking it. Wait, what? Okay.
I'm guessing like it opens a mixer or something.
Eh,
I mean, if you look at the graph shown up in the example, there's one that says mixer
yeah.
inside the sound key editor, so could be
Yeah.
something related to that.
Well, it looks as though the sound cue is kind of maybe it's um, like taking everything that's supposed to happen at one particular moment of time, and that's what the sound cue is all about. It takes the mixer that is like including all these different sounds into it, and then tries to output it all or something like that. But it's like, I thought the mixer was already kind of doing that, so that's why I'm like, you know, um,
On the mixer, you can like mix sounds and even edit the sounds themselves by manipulating the wave, like with the whole low pass, high pass filter stuff. This is like putting the stuff into the sound cue
maybe
using
maybe
the
it's
value you made and putting it in there.
maybe they're maybe they're basically saying, hey, we don't need to mix anything. We don't really need to change anything around. We just want these sounds in there, and we want them to play at this particular moment of time. So we're gonna put it in the sound queue and let it go. Maybe it's doing that. Maybe there's like a little bit of overhead in the sound mixer because it's like having a lot of properties associated with it. So maybe they're like saying, hey, we don't really want to deal with all the mixer properties, so we're just gonna deal with it that way. But again, it doesn't really make much sense because as you as you said there, Blackheart, they have a mixer in the sound cue there. So what's the major difference here? Um, but the They're basically saying the sound wave is a representation of an imported audio file and the sound cue editor. You can select the sound wave asset in content browser and click add the sound cue you are editing by right clicking anywhere in the sound cue editor and choosing the sound wave from selected. Right? Because other sound cues may use the same sound wave, you cannot modify the volume and pitch values of the sound wave in the sound cue editor. But wait, in the paragraph above, it says the volume and pitch settings are used to manage relative sound cue volumes.
Well, maybe it's not individual. Maybe it's like generalized. Maybe you want to edit one individual part of the audio you just imported, but you can't do that. If you edit it in the sound cue, maybe you're editing all of it and not just one individual thing.
Maybe. But
Maybe to edit there's only this one specific sound in the sound cue, but you can't do that in the sound cue. You have to like pop that out over to the mixer and edit in the mixer, then put it back in.
maybe. It's the only reasonable course of action in this particular scenario that I can see. The other question that I would have is, okay, if you are changing the volume and pitch settings in the sound cue itself, are you basically setting the the sound volume and pitch settings for all of them? So, like for example, if the sound wave you added has like a volume and pitch that's like 25% or something like that, like 0.25, right? Um, and you add it into the sound cue, and the sound cue you just max it out. You put it at the 1, right? Is it taking like is it like taking that um, you know 25% and basically saying, hey, we're playing that 25% at the 25%, right? So like if you were to like maybe lower the sound cues volume and pitch to say like 0.75, would you basically be changing the sound waves by 25% and like reducing that down by 25% or something like that? I don't know. I'm not quite.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's really going on there. Or if you put it into a sound cue and the sound cue is at 1, does it change all the sound waves to 1? Like, hey, you put in the sound wave that's at, 0.25, right? But you put it in sound cue that has 1, and now all your sound waves have 1 for the volume and pitch. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing on that one. So, um, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, then still, what is the purpose of a sound cue versus a sound mixer? You know, that's the one thing that could, it could really use a good explanation so far, and we're not getting that. Anything else do you want to add before I move on?
Not yet. Let's move on.
Okay. Importing sounds. To import sounds in the Unreal Editor, do the following. Okay, blah, blah, blah. That's easy enough to do. We really don't need to. I mean, we've already done that, so You know,
Yeah.
we don't need to worry too much about that. So, creating a sound cue. To create a sound cue, do the following. We're adding a new for the content browser, new asset, other assets, click sounds, and then click sound cue. Type in the name of your new sound cue, which again doesn't really help us because we don't know what the sound cue does. So, so far again, you know, what is the purpose of this? But
Mm,
this will move on, or do you have anything that you
yeah.
want to say?
Move on for now.
Okay. So opening the sound cue editor. You can open the SoundQ editor by right-clicking the SoundQ asset in the content browser and then clicking Edit in the context menu that appears, or by double-clicking a SoundQ asset. Okay. Um, hmm. Okay. Double-clicking a SoundQ asset. I'm I mean, if you don't have the SoundQ editor open, then how would you know what is a SoundQ asset? Hmm.
Mm,
Did it show like a specific symbol for the sound cue as a sound cue asset? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously the audio has a lot of um, you know, various things that you can see, that you can use, that has its own different icons and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was, but
Maybe.
yeah. Okay. Audio node graph. The audio node graph is located in the viewport panel. It displays the audio signal path from left to right with interconnected nodes representing audio control modules and audio files. The output node, which has an image of a speaker on it, represents the final output of audio as heard in-game and is always positioned furthest to the right in the signal path. The source audio files, sound waves, are always positioned furthest to the left in the signal path. Wires are used to connect nodes. To preview playback, use the play buttons located in the toolbar at the top of the sound cue editor window. For more information about the toolbar, see toolbar. Okay. Hmm. The play cue button plays the entire sound cue, and the play node button plays the sound from the selected node. If multiple nodes are selected, the play node button is grayed out and unavailable. Okay, so you can only play, one node at a time. You can't select multiple and play multiple. So, so if you want to have, um, so I guess if you want to just have, um, play those, you know, specific grouping of sounds, then you'd probably have to like create like maybe a temporary sound cue to do that.
Like you either play it all or you play one.
Yep. Well, what I'm
No in
saying
between.
what I'm saying is that in order to get um
No,
like
well,
se-
you
like
don't
se-
necessarily need to create another one. You could just disconnect the sound cues you don't want to listen and play it all. Like say you want to listen to 1 and 3 here in the example, just disconnect number 2, and only these two will be the one going into the all the way to the speaker.
yeah, but at the same time that might be a little risky in that maybe there's some additional information that is handled by doing these connections or something like that, and I wouldn't.
All it's done is these are like audio tracks, and this is what it's telling that you do. Like this is all the behavior. Like 1, 2, and 3 are just audio tracks. Random, modulator, and looping, they're just behavior, and then there's the output.
Yeah. No,
So all you need to do is just remove one of the sounds, and the behavior is gonna take care of the rest.
yeah. What I'm saying though is that there might be some settings in there or that might get reset if you like remove the output. So what
I don't think it would,
I'm I'm
because you're importing an already existing audio. Remember what it said: you can't edit nor modify audios in the sound queue, like
well, I'm
individually.
not I'm not talking about modifying. Okay, I'm not talking about modifying um the sounds themselves. I'm talking about like there might be something here saying, "Hey, I want the looping hand being done for like 5 seconds, right?" And then you cut it off. You want the looping to stop after 5 seconds. And if you like take that out of the path, would it change that value or something along those lines? Would it kind of reset the value back to like, say like default value is like a 1 second loop or something? That's why I'm like, you know,
I don't think it would reset if you disconnect it. You only
I
reset if you modify it manually.
I would hope that that's the case. I'm just saying, I've known some programs that um that have kind of done things along those lines where it's like, hey, if you don't need me anymore, we're just gonna get rid of it altogether. It's like, no, so um, so it's one of those things where it's like, I'm assuming, I am, you know, uh, assuming, you know, that it does, work the way you're saying it does there, Blackheart. I'm just worried that
If you will reset, there will be a lot of users complaining and requesting that you change.
probably, um, the, but uh, either way, what someone could do if they wanted to, like say you didn't want a modulator in, or you wanted to test out the sounds without the modulator, right? You can just create a different sound cue with the same audio files, the same random, the same looping, and going into an output. You can create like a secondary sound cue to just kind of test it out, you know, play it out, see if it's what you wanted, and then you can just kind of delete that sound cue afterwards if you really wanted to. You could do something like that as well. It doesn't, it shouldn't cause any, um, it's already talked about how you can add the same audio files into multiple different sound cues. So you can do that if you wanted to. But obviously, it depends on what you're kind of testing out and stuff like that. Like maybe you want like different sound waves at random to see like which one will be the best for this particular moment in time or whatever. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. You could do that as a possibility. I'm not quite sure if it would be easier, especially if it's really simple to just kind of say, hey, I'm going to take out the input, take out the output, and move thing, you know, um, change the path around or something like that. Like, hey, um, I want the three sounds going into modulator, then the output for the modulator goes into the input of random, blah blah blah, right? You can really mix and match the blueprint there if you really wanted to um, to kind of change things around a bit, but still, it's one of those. Hmm. But I don't know. Obviously, we'll see when we get more into making the game, and well, we have to figure out, what the difference is between a sound cue and sound mixer is, but um, we'll have to figure that out a little bit later. So, of course, as always, if anybody's watching us right at this moment in time and you know these answers to our questions, then please feel free to speak up either right now in chat or on these video comment sections. We encourage any kind of additional information, you know, or links to other videos that might explain it. Okay, Blackheart and I will be sharing information with each other, um, so yeah, right?
Right.
All right. All right. You can add an audio node by dragging it into the graph from the palette. Right. Okay. That's um, and obviously there's quite a different amount of sound nodes there, so that's interesting. You can also add a node by right-clicking in the graph and choosing the node from the context menu that appears. Right. Okay. So it's pretty much the exact same thing. It's just, if you don't have the palette open, then you can just do right-click and handle it that way. Um, as with other node-based editors in the Unreal Editor, you can type text in the search box for a dynamic filter that lists the nodes that appears in the context menu. If you have a node in the graph, you can add a new node by dragging a wire off the existing node's pin and choosing a new node from the context menu that appears. Okay. So you put in the looping, for example, you click on output, you drag it out a little bit, and it will bring up a context menu for you to basically connect it to. So interesting.
Yeah. So in the probably sound cue reference explain what each one is.
Yeah, probably. Well, at least I would imagine thank you editor ID might have a little bit more, maybe.
The UI don't know. More like I think like reference would be the one telling us what is what. Hmm.
Hmm. I mean, they mention the palette, but they don't really go through. They don't really go through the values contained in it. Hmm. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for the editor. They're just
Yeah.
basically saying, hey, if you want, explanation of the nodes are available in the sound key reference. Well, I mean, it just says it right there.
Yeah.
um, all right. So we'll go ahead and skip over the sound cue editor UI because
Yeah.
again, that's not really that useful for us. Um, so I'm not really seeing a major listing of uh, information concerning the different nodes here. Oh my God. They have a link. Wait, okay, hold on. Wait, I thought I clicked on that UE4. Okay, there it is. It's like, wait, what? I thought I clicked on the sound cue reference, but it didn't initially bring it up. So I was like kind of scrolling through and really not really seeing anything in terms of the different nodes. So I was like, oh wait. So I guess I was just kind of confusing myself. Or the link initially was kind of throwing me off by saying, okay, we're gonna send you back to the SoundQ editor or something like that for some reason. I don't know. Um, okay. SoundQ reference has a lot of information in it,
Yeah.
like a
I
lot.
guess this is something that we can look at as we experiment with it. Like if we're looking for something particular, then we look at the sound cue reference. If we make something with sound cue, which all I can do is make a guess of what the sound cue is based on its name mostly.
Yeah.
Like with the sound mixer and attenuation, you can like modify the sound itself. I feel like sound cue is like putting it like in some form of condition to trigger this that sound that's on a cue. Like say you walked into an area with a boss, and the sound cue would look at as a condition to trigger boss music, for example. You went through it on the mixer attenuation to make it sound the way you wanted it. Sound cue says, okay, this condition is met, play it like this. Maybe or a sound effect, like if you grab a melee weapon and start smacking something, the sound cue saying, okay, I detected something's being hit, cue in this sound. Just from the name alone, it's like just because of that part where it says cue.
Well, okay. So according to this, which again, doesn't, again, it doesn't feel like you're wrong. Um, but again, this one doesn't sound like it's like covering all the information either. So in the SoundCube reference, like the very first two paragraphs that they have here, in Unreal Engine, a SoundCube is an audio object that encapsulates complex sound design tasks in a node graph. Sound cues provide audio designers freedom to dynamically change parts of the sound effects design by arranging and modifying sound nodes, creating complex and interesting audio output. Sound nodes appear in the palette panel when the sound cue editor is open. When you add a node to sound cue and select it, the properties for that node is displayed in the details panel. So, um, it definitely feels as though, you know, um, it's like, you're right in the fact of like, the sound mixer is meant to kind of change the volume and the pitch and so on and so forth of the sounds associated with it. Um, but the sound
The sound
cue,
cue could be behavior.
yeah, it might be like behavior or might be something like it's like waiting for a specific trigger to happen. Maybe it um I mean, it just feels as though it might be just full on, like, hey, it's just kind of waiting for some kind of trigger. And then it will play all the associated sounds along with it. And then, it may loop, it may not. But it doesn't, it sounds as though it's something like, um, it's not changing um, it's not really changing a sound, but what the sound does. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like like here, one of the nodes that you can add into the sound cue is called delay. I mean, yeah, you can put a delay into the sound file itself, um, or you might change like you create a song and you put like a slight spacing happen between um, like you might like stop the song for like a minute or something like that, you know, basically thinking this is when the dialogue's gonna happen, and then you can start the song right back up a minute later, right? But um, um, maybe there's something else going on during that time that they needed to like maybe expand out the delay longer. But you'd probably need like two separate soundtracks for that. Split that first one into two, and then maybe you can do the sound cue editor where you play the first song. You have the second part of the song, but you have it go like one goes into the delay to be played, and then you have like the second part come in afterwards or something. I don't know. Um, Again, I'm not sure like 100% what sound cues are all about, but it feels as though it's meant to do like a what the sound does. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't really have like any control about like I'm looking at the palette for Sound Road, right? And I'm not seeing reverb on there, for example.
I think Reaper is part of the configuration for either attenuation or mixer.
And that's my point is that the reverb is something that affects the sound itself, right? It changes up how the sound is heard. Whereas the sound cue might be something along the lines of like it's just like changing how often you hear it or something like that, like looping, for example. You know, so so maybe that's the difference between the two. Could really use confirmation. So if anybody knows for sure, then let us know about that. But that's where I'm kind of leaning towards now. But
Mm.
I'm not, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, like the only example from what I was thinking that I can think of, or at least the best one, would be I don't know if you played Devil May Cry 1. Uh, while there's no enemies, there's like one set of like background sound and music. But as soon as an enemy enters, it like all the background changes and it puts in some heavy metal.
hmm
And I feel like that would be an example of a sound cue. Like that sound was cued in for as soon as an enemy enters, trigger this music now. Okay, enemy's dead. Okay, put back in the ambient. I feel like maybe that's kind of what sound cue would be doing.
Well, I would say yes and no. Yes, in the fact that you can probably like trigger the sound cue to play all the different like sounds and combat and so on and so forth. For when combat is initiated, like it says like, hey, we're gonna change up the music from from before into something new.
Yeah, like using all the
Um,
music, all the enemy sounds, and things like that.
right, it kind of puts it all into like one different sound cue for that portion. But notice the fact that it doesn't. The sound cue editor has nothing concerning trigger. So it's not
Maybe
like
something that falls in the programming part, maybe.
yeah, so something else most likely has to trigger the sound cue editor, but the sound cue editor holds on to all those like those type of sound effects, the music, when to play it, when not to play it, kind of thing.
Like sound cue can be tied to some form of programmable condition, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Um, so it's the only thing that I can think of. Again, I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct in that uh, assumption. I might be completely off base. I mean, I don't know. That's why, I look forward to anybody that knows you know, to give us some more information. But for right now, I think that's where we're gonna go ahead and close on down there, my friend.
Yeah.
Because
As a
um,
reference point, we can look at it whenever we're working with a sound cue if we are looking for something specific and we don't know what it is.
yeah. So um, so I think this is pretty much the end of our working with audio section. I think
Yep.
we're pretty much done with the audio. Obviously, we've generated a lot of questions. There's a lot of parts that we're not 100% sure about. We encourage anybody that is a sound engineer to please look through our videos and help us out on our lack of understanding in certain areas, or in a lot of areas in some cases. Um, but I think this is where we're going to go ahead and kind of say, like, hey, we're done with our audio portion of um, you know, the Unreal Engine. Would you agree, or
Yeah, I do agree.
okay? So, so I'm just gonna basically say that hey, we've now covered the audio section and the like. So, so next time we are going to go into AIs. Now, again, I don't know where they have AIs in their documentation. I'm not really seeing anything that is like outright stating like, hey, this is
We
for artificial.
found AI components, but that's pretty much it.
Wait, where did you see the AI components?
I typed it on the search, AI, and on the components section there is AI components. Hello there, Julian.
Okay, so I'm looking up artificial intelligence, and there is a section called Making Interactive Experiences, and artificial intelligence is apparently underneath that. So here, let me, yeah,
Okay, I found
make
that part as well.
so making interactive experiences and artificial intelligence. Okay, so we'll probably be covering that. Um, covering the artificial intelligence portion of this. Now, this interactive experiences might be something that we might want to look into a little bit more, maybe. Although, like using cameras might be something that we might want to consider. Um, Networking multiplayer, eventually we'll probably want to try to do that at some point in time, but you and I both know that that is a
Long way,
mess.
if we ever do on networking and multiplayer.
Well, I would recommend that we do at some point, maybe, depending on the game. But
Yeah.
we shouldn't outright say no to it. Okay. Um, you know, like some games might be really great on as a single player, but we might have people that are like going, "Boy, I really wish this could be multiplayer." Um, and we might get people like requesting that a lot for a game. So we may need to consider that at some point in time in the future. I'm not saying we're going to start it off like the very first game, no. That's not
No,
something that
way
I'm,
ahead.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, you know, um, it might be like the fifth game down the line or something like that. Who knows? You know, we might make our very first game. We're working on like our second and third game, and then we might be seeing like a lot of people coming up and saying, "Hey, can you do like a multiplayer for your first game?" If we get a lot of suggestions along those lines, then we may
Our
consider
first
it.
game, no.
Well,
Our
I'm
first game, no.
well, I mean the initial idea is to make sure that we're not going to make our first game as multiplayer, right? But like when we're like 5 games in, right? We're already like made like multiple games and stuff like that. We're already kind of familiar with the Unreal Engine. We're knowing how to kind of, you know, make the process, work things out. And we get a lot of comments, like maybe someone sees the first game, purchases it, plays it out, and they're like going, man, would really love to see it as a multiplayer. Spreads it out, it starts blowing up and stuff like that as a single player. I'm just saying, hypothetically, okay. And we get a lot of comments in these, in the community, basically saying, could we get a multiplayer of this game? Okay. Then, you know, we may say there's no way. There's no way that we can figure out some way of making it a multiplayer, and we'll let the audience know. But if we can maybe figure out something,
But
then
in the case of multiplayer, we will have to consider it from the beginning, pretty much. Because if we make something single player, adding the multiplayer later, it's gonna be a mess.
yeah, oh yeah, that is indeed um, something that um, we would have to kind of consider. Okay, think of it this way. There was I told you about the game Kingdom, right? Did I
I
did
I
I
think I have one of them, Kingdom Classic.
did you ever play Kingdom? The that or do you know about Kingdom where it's basically like that one it's a game where you're playing a king or queen on a horse trying to rebuild their kingdom. It's very
Yeah, I have
pixelated.
seen the footage of it. I haven't played it. I have Kingdom Classic, but I have seen footage of it.
Okay. Um, there was one streamer that was playing it, okay, and and he like played their second version of it, and then he was like, he kept on talking about how he would love to have gotten and get his wife into the game, or play the game with his wife, right? And you know the game designers heard that, saw that, and they were like, "On okay, how can we make this game into a multiplayer?" And then they created the game Kingdom Two Crowns, which is basically the same style game, but now with two players in it.
Yeah, they
So,
built it from the ground up with the intention for multiplayer.
right, I mean they obviously, did the same style game, but now they're trying to they added, they built in the multiplayer aspect of it. So, and try to work around the ideas of how they could actually make it a multiplayer and so on and so forth. But that's something that could happen with our games. Okay, just bear that in mind. You know, now I'm not gonna say like, hey, let's go ahead and go back to our old code and change it all, to include multiplayer. No, probably
No,
not. Um,
that'll just break the game.
Most likely, yes. Well, I mean, we'd have to do a real, we'd have to, first we'd have to branch it, so we'd leave the original alone to continue being purchased and stuff like that if people wanted to purchase it, right? And then once we make all the necessary changes to to add the multiplayer aspect in it, then we could put it right back in place of the first to add in that multiplayer um, scenario. So now, whenever people download the game for the very first time, they have the multiplayer aspect of it. But let's face it, that's going to be a lot of work and a lot of headache and stuff like that. So,
A lot of
um,
debugging, a lot of bug repairs.
oh yeah, those that's without
Yeah.
question. If we're adding anything with like networking and multiplayer, we're definitely going to need to you know, uh, do a lot
There's
more
also
tests.
balancing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. All these things we're going to be doing anyway with single player as well. It's just with the
Yeah, but with
multiplayer.
multiplayer, it's just a nightmare to do it.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, nowadays you can actually you can ask people to kind of do it for you too. Okay, get some streamers to do it. We can do it ourselves. Like if we're like, okay, here's our game. We just tried to introduce multiplayer into it. Black and I are gonna test it out, see if it works. See, write down all of our problems with it. And see what we could do with it, right? You know, but at the same time, if we can get others to do the same, you know, then that might also be a possibility. So, so yeah. But obviously, that's way down the line.
Yeah.
but but I see, networking multiplayer is part of this making interactive experiences. Um, so this is interesting. I don't know if we're gonna be um in my listing of topics that you know we were gonna cover for Unreal. Um, I didn't really cover it very much in the interactive experiences, but I know how um, how useful some of these can be as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, physics alone, for example.
Yep.
Um,
A very important part of the game.
yeah. Well, for the most part, you know. I'm gonna assume that, you have collision. Yeah, collision in physics. So,
Yep.
so collision is pretty much essential for any game, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, for the most part, well, I guess it depends on the game.
Mm. Yeah, like if you do you want something to be movable, then yeah, collision and physics will go hand in hand. But if it was
Yeah,
something gonna be static, like there's a random box there, but even if you walk into it, nothing's gonna happen. It's just collision alone.
yeah. Well, I mean, like if we do like a simple game like find a different style game where it's like you just click on the image that is different from the other image or something like that. That's not really collision. So
No.
you know that's a puzzle game and stuff like that. So it's like obviously there's really no need for a collision in that style of game, for example. So it depends, but yeah. But I mean, collision is still pretty still something that we should probably cover probably.
Yeah.
So so I'm gonna go ahead and like write down making interactive experiences. Maybe I'll put that after AIs in this list, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit more. Although physics is part of the making interactive experiences, so that's kind of covered underneath that. Um, it's also talking about input,
Hmm.
which is also another one that I think I mentioned in my listing as well, I think. Game controls, yeah. So that's kind of covered under making interactive experiences. So maybe we should just cover making interactive experiences like fully.
Yeah, I'd say in its entirety we will have to cover it. There's plenty there that's gonna be important, I feel.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's some things that it's like, I don't think that we should really cover it immediately. But we may want to come back to it later, such as vehicles, you know.
Yeah, vehicles, and we can skip until we actually are going to implement vehicles,
Yeah.
if ever.
Well, yeah. If ever, yeah. The possibility might happen sometime down the future. Who knows? I'm not going to say it's not. It's never a It's not going to be a possible at all. We're never going to do it. But you know, but yeah. Using dialogue, voices, and waves. I mean, that's probably not going to happen for a while. Um, so I mean, unless you and I start doing some voice acting ourselves, and well,
I wouldn't mind doing it. I mean, just look at my Shovel Knight stuff. I kind of went nuts a bit there with the voice acting, but Late Knight's still my favorite. I like being the mad scientist there.
Okay then. um, but we might want to wait off on the dialogue voices and waves or something like that. For example,
Yeah,
there's some things that it's like okay, I can definitely see us using, but at the same time, there's things here that it's like, well, maybe not so much. Like force feedback, vibration function. The
eh,
the only time that I would ever see that is if you're doing it for like platforms. Now they're saying like you can include it for the iOS or Android, but
yeah, because of the Rumble system.
but I would me personally I would hate to have my phone vibrate. you know, that's just I don't know feels I mean, I don't necessarily like vibration functions in my controllers anyway, but that's me.
Yeah,
Um,
this will be for when we get into developing for consoles, maybe.
maybe. But
Not
again,
so much PC.
the problem with designing for consoles is that you need to follow their specific rules for making the game and for that particular console. You know, if you're doing something for Nintendo, if you're doing something for PlayStation, if you're doing something for Xbox, they have very specific rules that you have to follow in order to get the game out on any one of those particular consoles. And even then, that might require a lot of money to even allow for them to, you know, um, for us to even, be allowed to sell those games out on those consoles too. So probably not gonna happen right away.
No.
you know, unless we somehow like blow up or something like that, right? It can happen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say
At
that.
some point, maybe.
I'm not gonna say that it's never gonna happen, but um, sometimes it just might be, interesting luck at some point. Like
Like Cave Story.
yeah, um, Cave Story. I mean, Among Us is another one that blew up, and now granted, Among Us was designed for multiplayer.
Yeah,
So
it was built or fully for multiplayer in mind.
yeah,
So they
um,
started it just like that.
yeah, but you know, because some people loved it so much, and kept on like, playing it and stuff like that, it got, it then like, really cascaded, especially during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Everybody started playing, Among Us during the pandemic. Um, and but the thing was that Among Us had been out for like 2 years prior to it really blowing up. You
The
know,
streamer's gonna put it in the map.
yeah, streamers definitely put it on the map. Um, and I think at the time they were actually considering doing a Among Us 2. Um, you know, they were kind of kicking around the idea of like, hey, well, we need to see about making this into let's think of ways to make this Among Us 2 or something like that to be sold. And then Among Us blew up and there it went. So
We just say, okay, no, let's just make Among Us bigger, and that's it.
they pretty much they started like, I mean, they pretty much opened it up for like mods. I think they allowed for modifications to be added
Yeah, they
in.
added more maps and they added modding functionality. I think they
Yeah,
even made their modding tool. I think.
yeah. And after that, it just also it continued to blow up even more, right? Because then the modding community came in and they were like going, oh, okay, this is interesting. Let's see what we can do with this. And it just took off from there. So, which obviously the crew that are working on Among Us, they're like going, okay, these are interesting concepts. Let's maybe we'll take some of this. So we'll add it officially into the game. Um, but yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and end it so you can get the heck out of here, get yourself something to eat, and you can go
Yep.
and play your game or play Genshin later on tonight, and
Yep.
I can move on to playing some Lego. So, um,
Yep.
all right, man.
Yep.
We'll go into our
Uh,
respective and say our goodbyes. So, I'll
yep.
catch you later. Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, and that's where we're going to go ahead and end our Unreal session here, there, folks. I want to thank you all for joining us for um, for this Unreal session. Hopefully you found it informative. Again, please feel free to give us some information concerning the sound, the audio, because obviously we're not like 100% sure what's going on there about like all the topics. So if you're like a sound engineer or you are very experienced with Unreal Engine, then please feel free to go back through our videos so far that we have on the Unreal. Or you can check out Blackheart's content as well. And I have a playlist of it, so feel free to look through that and put in some additional information that can help us out. We would greatly appreciate it. And then, of course, we'll share it with each other. Um, Check out the description for various social media links, links that help me out directly, such as Patreon and Throne, links that might help you out if you're interested, the link to the robot application page and its document, or its um, the document that basically explains it. That's there. Um, don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you like what you saw. Um, you know, feel free to make some comments. Um, we appreciate any kind of constructive criticism. So, and it all helps out in the end. So, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I catch you next time. Until then, take care. Have a good night. Stay healthy. Stay safe. I'll catch you strangers next time.